Acts 16, verse 1 to 5. In the unfolding account recorded by Acts of the Apostles, the narrative brings us to Derbe and Lystra, where a certain disciple named Timothy appears. He is introduced not merely as a companion, but as one already bearing witness to a work that had taken place within him. The testimony of the brethren in those regions speaks to a life marked by faith, not by adherence to external distinctions, but by an inward reality that had already been established. Timothy stands at an intersection of identities, his mother a Jew, his father a Greek. In him, the historical tension between Jew and Gentile is quietly present. Yet what unfolds in this passage reveals that the dividing lines once so firmly drawn are no longer determinative in the advancing purpose of God. The narrative does not present Timothy as one striving to become something, but as one already received, already regarded as faithful among the brethren. When Paul the Apostle desires Timothy to accompany him, there is a deliberate act. Timothy is circumcised because of the Jews in those quarters. This act, at first glance, may seem to reintroduce the very boundary that had been rendered obsolete. Yet the action is not presented as a means of righteousness, nor as a requirement for standing before God. The earlier decision recorded in Council of Jerusalem had already established that Gentiles were not bound under such ordinances. Thus, Timothy's circumcision is not an attempt to secure acceptance, but a concession within a transitional moment. A moment in which the old order had not yet fully passed from the visible stage of history. The temple still stood, the custom still operated, and the awareness of fulfillment had not yet reached its consummate clarity among all people. In this setting, actions could still be taken for the sake of witness among those who remained zealous for the law, even though the law itself had reached its intended goal. As Paul and his companions moved through the cities, they delivered the decrees determined by the apostles and elders in Jerusalem. These decrees were not burdens, but clarifications, affirmations that righteousness and inclusion were not mediated through the law, but had already been accomplished. The believers were not being brought into a system. They were being awakened to a reality that had already been secured. The result is striking. The churches are strengthened in the faith and increase daily. This strengthening does not arise from the imposition of regulations, but from the unveiling of what had already been fulfilled. Growth flows from clarity. Increase follows the recognition that the work is complete. Within this passage, there is a quiet but profound testimony to the nature of that era, a period in which the old covenant world was fading, and the new had already been established in substance, though not yet universally recognized in its fullness. The actions of Paul are not contradictions, but accommodations within that overlap of ages. Timothy, then, becomes a living illustration of this reality, one whose identity is not defined by external markers, yet who moves freely within a world still learning to let those markers go. The narrative does not point to an unfinished work, but to a completed one being revealed, step by step, city by city, until the transition would reach its consummation. And so the passage stands as a witness to a movement not toward completion, but from it, a proclamation carried through human vessels, declaring that what had long been anticipated had now come to pass, and that the boundaries which once defined the people of God no longer held their former power.